Welcome to Get Off Zero. This week we've got a special guest from Brisbane. Is that correct, Ben?
Yep, I currently
Yeah.
reside in Brisbane,
So we
yeah.
met officially last week. I think you jumped into one of our faculty meetings, and I thought, oh, you seem like an interesting fellow who's doing some cool stuff from the sounds of it. So I thought I'd get you on the podcast. But do you want to give an intro to yourself and what you're sort of working on at the moment?
Yeah, so my background would have been traditionally IT, comms and networks, the last 20 odd years. And then I would say in 2012, I did look a little bit and discovered Bitcoin. I didn't act on it until 2015, which is quite painful. I don't know what happened during those couple of years. Um, but I kind of had a sort of a lightning bolt moment when I learned about women in Afghanistan actually, who like a lot of unfortunate women around the world in different countries that have a lot less rights than men, even if they do have banks there, you know, unable to have bank accounts or work and so forth. And that's when I learned about these Afghan women discovering Bitcoin and using it to try and find their own independence and
Cool.
setting up online marketplace and using Bitcoin to actually get some freedom. So obviously you've got a huge amount of the world which is unbanked.
Were you in Afghanistan?
No, 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 I wasn't.
No.
No, I have
All
spent a bit of my life living in the developing nation, but not that side of the world. I
right.
lived in Africa for almost 2 years, um, and spent 3 years in Brazil.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, reading that story was like, okay, yeah,
Where, where,
we're all.
when was that? Like, when's that on, and where is that story? That's really interesting.
Oh, I'll have to try and find the story for you and send
Oh,
it.
that's all right.
Yeah, yeah, because I've read more since then, like Check Your Financial Privilege by
Yeah, yeah.
Alex Gladstone, which is a more recent book. So when I saw that, I was like, wow, yeah, that's the stuff I was reading some years before.
Yep.
So yeah, that was the moment when I thought, okay, this has got real value.
Yeah.
Um, we're all on the fortunate side of the world where we can go around just tapping our card and don't really need to worry about those sort of freedoms. And then I lived in South Africa for a year, and then I went to Zambia and Malawi. And I remember being in South Africa trying to open a bank account, even for a privileged, I would say, white male in South Africa.
Yeah.
And I went to a big bank too, and the monthly fees were astronomical. When I lived there, even if those fees that maybe we could have afforded, but it was still a decision I wasn't going to make. I can't remember what it was.
Wow.
$20 or $10
Yeah.
a month or something. So living
For
that
the privilege to
experience,
have a bank account. Yeah, that's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah, yeah. So living that experience before I'd even discovered Bitcoin, and
Oh,
then
right.
reading about that story in Afghanistan, I just then realized how much of the world is doesn't have the freedoms that we have. So
Absolutely. That's so interesting. So like one of the kids from my school who we were doing like web development and all sorts of cool stuff. Her family's from Afghanistan. So mum's from
right.
Afghanistan. They're at our school. We got a lot of dowry families at our school, but yeah, super smart, and she's actually started her own business making like web development now, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And I think I probably mentioned that family from Egypt that we're doing the tutoring
Yes.
with. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's kind of come full circle. So the
Yeah.
father, this was like last night, the father from the family that I'm tutoring, he was like, "Have you got any time for web development and WordPress dev?" And I'm like, "I'm on like zero time at the moment, but I've got a really smart girl, and I've connected them. So she's going to be working for him on the other side of the world, like building, like
Fantastic.
updating his WordPress website. So yeah, very very cool. So yeah, the power of the internet, I suppose, like and
Yeah,
open source
exactly. Yeah,
technologies. TCP/IP.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. I always make that example, but if somebody says what's TZIP, then you've got to go back a bit more. Yeah, so in 2015, going back to that year, after reading that and various other learnings of Bitcoin and real life examples, I jumped onto BTC markets at the time, that Australian exchange, and bought my first Satoshis and some Ethereum. Although I probably shouldn't mention that dirty word. I don't know. It's a Bitcoin only podcast.
Yeah,
But
no, definitely not.
okay, so that sold that obviously straight away. So I bought those my first Satoshis, and then I was very conservative because at the time I'd had my first child, just bought a house, so I was very yeah. Well, I didn't buy too many, unfortunately. So then after that, I went to Brazil for 3 years with my children.
3 years. Oh wow, that's cool.
Yeah,
That's very
yeah,
cool.
in the middle of the wilderness, the largest wetlands in the world, the
Wow.
Pantanal. And my wife's from Brazil, so we went there to take some time out with the kids, and I kind of took my eye off the ball a bit with Bitcoin. And then midway through that, I bought some more. Classically, like I've probably done it twice at the top of the market, but I've still got this Satoshi since 2015, and still
Oh,
got the
nice.
2017 Bitcoin. So when I got back to Australia in 2021, just before COVID, I thought, okay, I've been on this journey on my own for quite some time now. Even being in IT, in the old when I lived in Melbourne for 10 years, I was talking about it to people around, sitting around you in the office, and everyone, just looking at you like you got two heads, um, which was difficult because you technologists and so forth. But I felt very alone in that journey up until 2021, and I got to Brisbane. I was like, okay, I need to find fellow people in this world
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
to to develop my knowledge and so forth. So that's when I started going to Bitcoin Bitcoin meetups
Yep.
in Brisbane,
It's
which was
it's so fascinating because I've got sort of similar stories with friends and stuff who are technologists, and in like I've got people that work on Linux, for example, as friends.
well,
Like network engineers, you would think that like that would transpose across, and like I know security professionals, right? Like cybersecurity
mm,
professional, you'd think all those skills would transpose across to understanding BTC, but they don't for some reason. There's like a weird disconnect. So like for someone like my background's like network engineering as well. So someone like you or me, somehow that stuck, but for them it doesn't. And I can't. I don't know why. I can't put my finger on it. I think maybe it's because, like you said, in the Western world, like they kind of don't have to care. So my credit card works. I can tap and go like, why do I need this magic internet money? I make enough as it is. Like this is just annoying. So I think that's maybe what it is. But it's strange. I don't know what do you put it down to?
look, we've had before Bitcoin. We had, what was it called? There was a DigiCash, or I can't remember, some years
Oh yeah, yeah,
ago.
and like
And
bit gold, and yeah, there's a
yeah,
few
yeah. Even
iterations.
before that, when I heard about those things, I was like, what's the point? Yeah, somebody's making some little, what is it,
Yep.
digital thing and moving it to someone else. How's the value in that? So maybe a part of that is stuck. And also the obviously the mainstream media doesn't help at all. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, a lot of that is followed.
Well,
Um,
they do once every 4 years. It becomes
yes,
positive.
yeah.
It becomes positive all of a sudden. For oh, I
Yeah, yeah,
wonder
it's
why.
it's the media halving, yeah. Um,
Yeah.
so that you have all of the, it's for drug dealers and criminals, but so's cash. So
Yeah.
stop using cash.
Mm.
If that's the argument from a lot of people, I
Or
think
HSBC, the biggest
yeah,
like drug dealers in the world, right? Like,
yeah.
or money
So
launderers.
exactly, the endless printing of cash.
Mm.
So yeah, so after that, as I was saying, I went to the Bitcoin meetup and the Bitcoin and blockchain meetup in Brisbane, and learn a great deal, and because you really have got people that have been focusing on that a lot, for many years. Whereas
Yeah.
I had the belief and for helping people, but I didn't really delve deep into what is actually happening. The lower TCP/IP layer as such. So you go to the Bitcoin only one, which is Maxi, and yeah, then you really go, okay, I need to really delve into some of the jargon that people are saying. So that's what I've been doing the past couple of years since I've been here. I did work in Web3 for a year last year, which was a great group of people, a great learning experience going down that rabbit hole to really understand more about blockchain projects.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I really sort of came out of that and wanted to focus just really more on
On BTC. Yeah, that's
yeah
very
yeah
cool. Very cool. So in terms of like your sort of going backwards from your Genesis BTC learning Genesis, like before that, I always like to ask people like, did you question money sort of pre BTC, or was it only after you sort of learned about it?
no, absolutely yeah. When I came to Brisbane sorry, Melbourne, Australia in 2008. I hadn't really invested in a great deal. Did a bit of that travel and I lived in London for 8 years. So I really started to want to invest. So I did read, various books, The Intelligent Investor, look at the stock market, played around with that, looked at America's and the debt, and realized how we're really taught. Well, we're not taught anything.
No, yeah, that's the problem.
And I invested, played around in the stock market, which kind of went epically wrong in various things.
As it does, yeah.
Yes, yeah. So I really saw how the system was really by design not teaching people what they should need to know, particularly at a young age.
Financial
So they
literacy.
really
Yeah,
should. You
yeah.
have economics, but let's maybe that what does economics mean? I have read some economics, but what does economics mean for everyday life and working to be ahead and not working to be in debt?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe the model's reframed for the average primary school, secondary school student. And then obviously when you get to the degree level, it's all incredibly important to really learn that solid economics. But can we start off at a junior level of economics?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, it was super important. Like I remember a number of years ago, would have been like 2017 or something, and yeah, whatever the bull run around then, I think. And I was like volunteering at the Bitcoin Center in Melbourne at the time, and they got me to go speak to a group of CPA grads at Swinburne about blockchain technology. And I was like, the irony's out of control because this is like a tech that's going to make your job obsolete, basically, right? I'm thinking, how do I make this like fun so they can continue their studies and not like kind of scary, right? Like if you go on the website will the robots take my job.com, at the time you put in accountant and it's like 100%, like it's over. So anyway, I went and spoke. It was a packed room, CPA grads, all accountants, like qualified now. And the first question I asked was, "Does anyone know what money is or where it comes from?"
yeah.
Crickets. I was like, "Whoa, nobody, like even wrong answers, nothing." Yeah, they never taught, didn't know.
Yeah, I mean,
Amazing.
it is amazing, and if you go back to the '70s and gold, and you're understanding why people, your grandma and even people now putting gold under the mattress or wherever else because of that, and then getting depegged with the dollar, but
Mm.
now if you look at the performance of gold over the last 10 years, it may be safer than holding printed money, but there is a lot of background manipulation and audits on how much gold is actually in these banks questionable.
Well, and how much there is in like potentially to find as well that hasn't been found. So I know there was one like last year, like a new deposit of gold and silver, I think. Like I forget where. I remember reading an article about it, and it's just like basically makes the supply or the amount that we have just it dwarfs it by how much has just been found recently. So it's like, well, that can just keep happening, right? Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's
I remember
wild.
quite a significant thing happening with one of the prime ministers of England. I know we've had quite a lot recently,
Yeah.
but if
Yeah.
you go back to George Osborne in his last period, he sold a huge amount of the British gold during a bear market, you know. And there's obviously lots of theories and about that, but quite a shocking decision to make, and particularly if you're telling the world the value of gold, and then you sell a huge amount of the British public's gold at the worst possible time. You know, so that was another shocking thing I discovered.
Discovered, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing, isn't it? Particularly when you delve into like the history of stuff. There's a website, I think it's what the fuck happened in 1971.com. I think that's the
Yes,
website. And it
that's a
goes
good.
through like
That's a very good name.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that's it anyway. Um, but yeah, it kind of goes into like the decoupling from um gold, and yeah, I think it was Nixon like took them off
Yeah,
the
the
standard
peg. Yeah.
in the US. But yeah, amazing, amazing. Anyways, back to you. So your BTC origin story. So you said like 2012 was the first time you sort of heard about it.
Yeah.
What was that, and then what made you sort of delve into it in 2015?
Funny, I think it was a BBC article, which is, not questionable media source.
Yeah,
And it said Bitcoins have crashed,
yeah,
And so it
yeah.
was when the articles used to say, and it was
Bitcoin's
exhibited.
hacked. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, and then you read the content of the story then, and it starts to explain how Bitcoin works. And it says, computer power mines new Bitcoins, so it was when people were using the word Bitcoins and how many Bitcoins do you have? And then, so that was the story. It was that classic one that you have now of, whenever there's a crash, all the media jump up and talk about the 80% crash. They don't talk about the Netflix, the Amazon 80%, 90% crashes, or the Tesla ones happening at the pretty much the
Yeah.
exact same time.
Yeah, exactly.
So that was the period. I'm just yeah, I can't remember what happened between 2012 and 2015. Obviously, a lot was going on, and it doesn't really help you when you're on a journey on your own. You've got a lot of people around you, and you almost go on the ground on your reading,
Yeah.
But luckily, I picked it back up again through other media and
All right.
questioned what the media was actually saying, and that's when I discovered this huge amount of the unbanked. Living in Brazil too, that also was also very interesting. I was living in a place
Mm.
where didn't always have internet, very remote. Sometimes you wouldn't have power. You might have people there that need to pay for things with cash or with credit cards, um, which would take a lot of time. And obviously, you wait for those to settle, and you pay, costs on top of that. So I
Yeah.
really started to see how Bitcoin could help, South America as well.
What is the
Unfortunately,
adoption like in Brazil?
it's if you look at the whole of South America, I would say it was number one.
Yeah.
They've passed bills in recently. Well, sorry, it must have been last year in the Senate to allow Bitcoin and crypto to be used for payments and so forth.
Yeah, right.
You've got a huge amount of
So
investment there.
no capital gains.
I have to check that, but you've got a big digital bank called Nubank, which is a Brazilian one,
Right.
which is also in bit crypto, and I hate to say that word, but that's the words they're
Yeah,
using.
yeah, yeah.
And the irony of that is you've got people like Warren Buffett who says Bitcoin's rat poison squared, and he wish he could ban it, but then he's invested a huge amount of money in Nubank, which is a digital bank,
Has he
which
really?
yes, yes.
Oh, that's
So
incredible.
So if you've got no belief whatsoever in this technological revolution, you're investing in. It's a little bit like being a climate a climate, advocate and investing in BHP or
Yeah,
Shell.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, they might be obviously investing in renewables now, those businesses, but the core
What's that?
underlying.
What's that saying? Watch what they do, not what they say.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I
Yeah.
thought that was very interesting, and they're doing extremely well, New Bank.
Mm,
And there's always articles, like credible articles, when you go to the source on what the government is doing in passing and how
cool.
it's also helping. Because there's a huge amount of obviously poverty in Brazil, so it's also assisting such people there too. I think it's read a lot more about Africa.
Yeah.
Maybe not that organization of a political system like Brazil. Not that it's organized as much as our side of the world, but Africa might be. I haven't been reading a lot about going on in the political side, but a huge amount of general people in Africa, South Africa particularly,
Yeah.
trying to move it forward, even moving Satoshi's on the Lightning Network on old Nokia phones. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
been following that.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, yeah. So there's all those use cases. I traveled to Switzerland too because I have family there. So if you look at the whole of Europe, so going back to South America, I'd say Brazil would be my number one for
Wow.
adoption, and for Europe, it would definitely be Switzerland. It's
Yeah. Interesting. I don't know
if
if
you're
did you
interested.
did you ever see that Deagle site? So it was like the weapons manufacturing company. They had like projections for I think it was like 2025 to 2030 for populations, and they had I think it was like UK, America, Australia, like massive decline in population,
Yeah, yeah.
but Brazil was like massively up in their predictions. So maybe that's something to do with that as well.
No, I didn't see that, but it's good to know that. Yeah, I was kind of correct on that. But Switzerland is, the Swiss are number one for innovation on a lot of scales. Obviously, financial history there with banks.
Yeah.
But if you're an institutional investor now, they can buy the Bitcoin for you and store it safely, like a bank, and it's secured. And
They've got those like
so
vaults and stuff there, don't they? I've
yeah,
seen
yeah, yeah. I'll be
seen a
on the
couple of docos on that. It's pretty
Swiss
crazy.
Swiss Alps, yeah, actually,
Yeah.
very secure. And then
Still,
you've got this,
not your keys, not your coin, right?
yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah. But at least it's breaking that barrier
Yeah,
for people,
for
which I
sure.
hope Jack Dorsey does now with Block. And let's see what comes out of this app,
Yeah.
which is supposed to be. I mean, I don't know if you've read about that fingerprint. I'm skeptical about the safety of
No, no, I haven't seen
fingerprint,
fingerprint.
but
What's that?
well, it just there was an article I read this week about Jack Dorsey bringing an app out. Whether the article's true about the fingerprint, but it just led into this possibly being the way the barrier of the seed and so forth would be removed. Whether that's true or not, it just led into that being a possibility.
Oh,
So
so
this
like your
app,
seed phrase replaced with your fingerprint.
yeah, 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 which it's a possibility. How much you believe in the security of these sort of things is another thing
Yeah, that's
altogether.
interesting. Well, I know, like, I've mentioned them before on the podcast, but seed tappers with nunchuck is like it's so easy to set someone up, easy to set up multi-sig, and easy to use. It's literally just NFC, tap to the back of
Yeah,
your phone, and that's it. Like it's really bridged that usability versus security really well, I think. So yeah, I guess the next logical thing is a fingerprint. I don't know, that kind of creeps me out there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember what years ago, and you look at the security services and biometrics, and you might have a fingerprint, and they go to the extreme of a liveness test, to check if there's a pulse in the finger, in case someone chops your finger off. So it depends how secure you want to make it. But that's the area I really have been trying to focus on last year, and even more this year, is how do we actually get the rest of the population to see its value, not just as a store of value, but also as use,
Use
and
case.
where could we remove that barrier? And that's why it was interesting to also go to Lugano in Switzerland, which has adopted Bitcoin in that canton and legal tender, pay your taxes. And I went there only when it had been a month, so it was very early.
Mm.
And I went to a couple of merchants there, a fashion label for clothes and then sunglasses, so it was a very Italian place. And the clothes shop. The lady was, passionate about Bitcoin, but not a lot of people had come in and used it. Similarly with the sunglasses stuff, but they were positive. The guy in there was like, we're early, we've got to start somewhere, and that's how you learn from your mistakes. Going back to any technology. But those barriers were exactly what we know the barriers. You go to the Swiss exchange, buy it, buy Bitcoin with your fiat,
Yeah.
lose a percentage of your fiat, move it into wallet of Satoshi or something similar, and then lose another amount and then go into a shop and tap. So how do we get past that barrier and it not just being a benefit for the merchant, which is, the merchant might not get the charge from Visa and MasterCard. It would be, a small amount, a cents, if it settles in the currency they wish.
Yeah.
But the customer, how do we?
Maybe I think something like what Strike's building out is probably the
Yeah,
answer.
exactly. Yeah. Well, I
But
went to
it
Miami.
has blown my mind though. Like for years, I've been sort of campaigning, trying to get merchants, so like coffee shops, independent sort of places, to accept, and it's minimal. Like the uptake, you can try. I've managed to get a few places on board, but I always thought like it's free to set up. All you need is a phone, and you'll get on a map, and you'll get people coming out of the woodwork to come to your shop. Why would you not do it? But they've got like this block against it. Like it's almost like they subconsciously don't want to succeed. A lot of them, it's just like I find it really hard to get my head around. Like so much so, like I had and I know accountants sort of come into it as well. But there was one bloke when I used to live down in Mordialloc, which is not too far from here. Like it's sort of beachy sort of town. But there was a really cool sort of indie, sort of hippie coffee shop, and this was like the start of the lockdown periods. And this lady had been there for I think like 20 years or something. But anyway, she sold up, and this teacher actually bought the business like in the midst of the lockdown. She was like, "No, I'm out because if I can't open, that's it," sort of thing. So yeah, this guy bought it, and I was like, "Oh well, it's interesting." So I went and had a chat to him, and he said, "Yeah, I bought this. Teach as well, rah rah rah." And I was like, "Oh, have you heard about BTC? Because I can do a transaction to you." Got him to install Wallet at Satoshi. Even gave him a tip as well. And it was like, "Oh, this is awesome." I'm like, "Dude, if you set this up, I can put you on the map. You'll get people coming here like all the time, and I'll come every morning to get my coffee rather than going somewhere else, right?" Super excited, and he was like, "Yeah, awesome." Like, showed him how it works. So we did like another transaction, went off, came back the next day, and I was like, "Oh, cool. Let's do the coffee transaction." And he's like, "Oh, sorry, my wife doesn't like it." I'm like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "Yeah, my wife said it's not good. She doesn't like it." So yeah.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. And like a lot of things, the media, you've
Yeah.
had good startups early on that no bank would touch them. They wake up and the bank accounts have been closed
Mm,
because there was association with Bitcoin.
yeah.
I think we need to reframe the story as Bitcoiners or maxis
Yeah.
of, yeah, we explain the scarcity and we explain all these things that money is being printed and it's worthless, but maybe we need to make a new story about really how it's developed in the last 14 years. Um, bang on about the unbanked and how it really is being used and helping people across the developing Asia, Africa,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
so forth. But then it's still like, oh, cool, that's great. Why do I need it? maybe
Well,
you want to support.
it's the pain point, right? So there's in the Western world, there's people haven't got that pain point. So even people on like Centrelink or welfare can't see a use case for it because they get their money comes into the bank and I use it. Like, why do I need this? Like, so yeah, maybe that's the answer, right? Like maybe it's the what is it? The first will be last and the last will be first. Like the third world countries, they kind of deserve it. Like they've gone through hell, so they'll be the first world and this will be the third world. Unfortunately, I
Yeah,
can
yeah,
see that happening.
exactly. Yeah.
It's kind of sad, but anyway, but we can keep trying, right? Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
so anyway, more about you. So you're actually this is a good question. So shit coinery. Did you dabble much, or like how long did it take you to sort of, because everyone's been through that, but like
Yeah.
what was your dabbling and what sort of got you out of that, I suppose?
All right. So if I go now, I've got permission to talk about altcoins. Uh, if I go back to that 2015 story when I bought my Satoshis, I also bought some Ethereum. I think it was like $20 back then, and I started reading about smart contracts and that moving the Ethereum, lock it up so I can make decisions on
Yeah.
something else. I was like, wow, that sounds quite cool. And so I bought some Ethereum, and that was also in BTC markets. And then when I went off to Brazil, I left it there, and I saw the price go up in the bull market, and I couldn't access any of it because I didn't have the same mobile number to get the
Oh
text.
no. Oh, that's a
So,
shame.
so it's kind of lucky in a way because I probably would have sold the $600 of Bitcoin I bought was worth like $3,500. I was in Brazil and I was like, oh, that's great. And if I could have accessed it, and because luckily BTC market, I forget if I've got that right, I can't remember, had good security.
Yeah.
Even holding up the piece of paper and saying this is me and making a video, it didn't cut it. So I couldn't access my Ethereum or my Bitcoin. I thought, well, I'll be back in 3 years, see what happens, but I'll keep dollar cost averaging on the Bitcoin. But
Nice.
then I started reading about the Ethereum because I thought I've got it and it was quite high. I then learned about the hack, and I'd already learned about the hack, and then I picked up on a story about the expiry, to get your Ethereum back after the fork,
Yeah.
and I'd read that the date had passed, early on during that whole we're making the forks after the hack, so people can get their Ethereum back, and then I'd read that there was an expiry date that you could do it. Then that had passed. So then I went in my wallet and just looked with great pain,
Oh
at
no.
my Ethereum that I couldn't ask. So that I couldn't access. Sorry. So I came back to
So that I didn't
Australia.
realize that.
Just
So there's an expiry date to
there's a good
recover.
story. Yeah. There's a good ending to the story.
All right. Yeah, yeah.
So so I came back to Australia and I thought there's got to be a way. There's just suddenly you just make new tokens and then you've got a date to do it. You had a date in the past. It's a bit unfair, this expiry. Anyway, I found my seed key, my encryption code. Went into my MEW wallet, and I couldn't get it. Then I went onto Reddit and posted a message on there. I'd actually posted this message when I was in Brazil, so it would have been like 2017. I was back in an IT role in Brisbane, and then suddenly got a message on LinkedIn saying I could help you get it back. So I was like, okay. Um, I was a bit dubious at first, someone's just going to help me and take my Ethereum or, call me a cynic, but I'm kind of just always in search of the truth. That's what I
Yep.
say.
Yeah.
um, so I started a conversation with this person on Reddit, and then we moved it to Telegram. He goes, sure, I can help you. And I tried to find out who he was. His name is Boki Buha, which is, I think I've said that correctly. Great name. He's got his own big Ethereum meetup in Sydney.
All
So we had
right.
a conversation on Telegram. I don't think I slept 3 or 4 days. Thanks, but I'm going to get it back hopefully. Um, so he was helping me on my wallet, and then we went into the all the technical side of getting it back. Moved it across, and then five Ethereum then came back into
Well,
my wallet. and I was like, okay, now I'm gonna get the rest, sort of thing. So I managed to get it all back. Yeah,
Wow, that's
yeah,
insane.
and
Jesus.
he didn't even want anything for it, which just shows how good the community is
Yeah.
that we're in. You know, people are wanting
Yeah.
to help each other. Yeah, I know it was Ethereum, which is it's a smart thing. He didn't want anything for it, but I sent him one Ethereum anyway.
Wow.
Um, so that was my great story with Ethereum. I
I
got
had a
it back
similar
and
one
then I didn't
actually with
sell it.
the fork wars with BTC. Like I had some in Electrum, and Electrum you still can set up two-factor auth like natively in the app. It's got like a mechanism to do that, which was awesome. So I was like, oh, that's a great layer of security. I'll chuck that on. And then Bcash and all the other garbage coins came like after that. And I was like, oh no, what the hell? So because I had enabled that two-factor auth, and I think I had lost, didn't lose the private key. I lost something associated with, I can't remember exactly. I lost something associated with the two-factor auth.
Mhm.
I was like, oh shit. So I contacted the Electrum dudes, and they were like, oh, there's there's a way to do it, but to get your Bcash and all the others, because I was just going to roll them back into BTC. And he's like, you're probably not going to like it. It's giving me your private key.
Oh right.
I was like,
Okay.
oh man, is there any other way? Rah, rah, rah. And then I had to think about it, and I was like, ah, it's all right. I'll trust you. And yeah, same thing. Like, got all the Bcash and all the other garbage forks and rolled them into BTC. So yeah, you're right. It's so many nice people out there in the community for sure.
I
Um,
thought he was going to ask me for my private key, but which was some random person you never met in
the other
on
side of the
Reddit.
world.
I would probably wouldn't have done, but he didn't. So also a great end to the
It's
story,
awesome.
though.
Yeah, yeah, so cool, so cool. So with that, like talking about your misadventures with custodialism, like in terms of like your learning journey now, getting off zero custody, have you sort of managed to do that? And like, where are you with that custodial versus non-custodial?
Yeah, I tried and tested, warm wallets, hot wallets in the past, and just didn't feel comfortable about that, on the phone and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Trezor, Ledger. Then I moved on to those.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got redundancy in another location and testing that you set it up in a Ledger, testing that you can also recover it on Trezor, and then
Trezor,
also
yeah.
different versions of the Ledger, the older version, the new one. So I went through all of that test, which being in networking and redundancy, you really wanted to test it myself,
Yes.
before I went and started putting anything in any of those devices. Um, and then recently, I was teaching my 7-year-old kid, which I've been doing for a while, various things. He set up his first wallet on Exodus, and I said, okay, try and remember your words and store them
Nice.
somewhere. And he also, every now and then he goes, oh, let's check something on YouTube. And we came across a guy in America who'd helped somebody hack a Trezor.
I watched that one. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
good.
you watched it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we watched that, which was excellent. And then it just made me think, well, it's a little bit like someone finding your keywords. It's no different. I mean, if somebody
Yeah.
physically gets it, but it was still made me nervous. Um, and then my latest one was testing the Bitbox O2, which is the Swiss Bitcoin only wallet,
Yeah. We were
which is supposed to
literally
be the
talking about
most
that
secure.
on, yeah, on the last episode we were talking about that. So shout out to Quenstop and Chris. He said it's his favorite out of all the wallets. So yeah. What's your experience like?
Yeah, look, it was a bit fiddly at the beginning because it's got these touch sensitive sort of buttons.
Yep.
So and then you've got the normal pain of keying all your words in, and then you obviously wipe it, so you do it again. So you go through those standard seed phrase pains that you get with Ledger and stuff like that. But I do really like it. It's Bitcoin only. It doesn't have any of these interfaces, which I find quite scary with Ledger and so forth.
Yep.
I've heard some stories people were swapping one coin into Bitcoin, and then it's using, what is it, coin jar or something, and one of those um washing machines, and then it froze and so forth. So that made me quite nervous. With all the development in Switzerland, with some of the stuff they do, it made me feel more comfortable in the fact that I've been there. I went to in Zurich. I went to House of Satoshi, which had the Bitcoin ATM, and
Cool.
they had those wallets there too. I haven't delved into effectively the mini board on there and what differentiates it, but it just made me feel comfortable reducing the risk by spreading it across two hardware devices,
Yep. For
and
sure.
also Bitcoin only. But it's reassuring to know CoinSpot finds it one of the best. Yeah,
One of the best. Yeah, yeah. So are you doing multi-sig with
I've wanted
that?
to get my hands on a Pi Zero, which seems to be
Yeah. Good luck.
pretty difficult to get. I don't know why. You can get one for $10 in America, and like $200. You see them randomly on eBay or Amazon. I don't understand what is going on there.
Yeah.
But
Hoarding. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I got a Raspberry Blitz, which is the newer Raspberry Pi for the Lightning Network.
Yep. Yep. So that's what you're rocking for your node?
Yes, that's the
Yeah.
direction.
Cool. So are you doing much with Lightning on that?
No, it's again, it's their comfortability and that leap that's still with a Raspberry Blitz is greater than Umbrella or on my node. But the guys at the Bitcoin meetup, they do presentations all the time, and would be the direction to go to really work and set up a channel with someone there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I do see, you set up a channel with somebody else. What are the risks there? Putting your Satoshis on there, it's not completely foolproof. It's not very inviting, is it? If you really haven't got somebody you trust to set up a channel. I don't know what your opinion is.
Yeah, well, I've set up channels and messed it all up and lost my BTC
But there you go.
a
So that's
couple of times.
excellent.
It's
So I
it's
don't want to.
easy to do.
I
Yeah.
don't want to be you in that respect.
I I find it I find I jump into stuff like that, like just to learn about it
Yeah,
really
exactly.
quickly.
Yeah,
And
I've lost.
it's yeah, like it's so easy to stuff things up. You're like, oh, what have I done? Even like I've got like 4 different types of nodes here that I've like set up and wiped. And then like, oh yeah, shit, I had like BTC on that, and then yeah, it's just the nature of the business. I mean, I dread to think how much I've lost over the years, like teaching kids as well, like just
All
giving out here
right.
and there, and like what they've lost. You know what I mean? So it's like
Mhm.
so that's why I was of like two minds with Doge, because I sort of shifted from using not to spruik a shitcoin, but shifted from using BTC back sort of before Lightning was Lightning to using Doge because it was worthless and it didn't matter if the kids like lost it or not. So
All
it was
right.
like
Yeah.
more about like your private key, public key, asymmetric encryption, and the 24-word seed, like how you sort of manage that. So
Mhm.
when bloody Elon pumped it, I was so pissed off. I was just like, dude, this is like something that it's meant to be worthless
Yeah.
just so you can learn about, sort of thing. So stupid. But yeah, it's definitely, I think, like now that Lightning's come along and has developed so much, like the even custodial Lightning, like it's such a cool tool for onboarding and for teaching people about how it works as well, particularly students. I think they resonate with the speed, because I think like waiting for the confirmations on chain can be a bit tedious for
Yeah.
people, particularly if you're like, particularly even going to a merchant. Like I remember back in the day doing that, and you're like, oh, has it come through? And you're kind of waiting around to see like, has the transaction cleared? Whereas yeah, Lightning and everyone I know who's gone to like El Salvador is just like, yeah, you just bing bing bong, like
Mhm.
you're paying for it everywhere. So yeah,
I'd
it's
really like
definitely.
I'd really like to go to El Salvador. I think that would be my next sort of destination. I went to Bitcoin Miami last year.
Oh, nice. How was that?
It was great, yeah. I mean, you can obviously see it all online, but I did a course with Anthony Pomp, Crypto Academy. It was.
Oh yeah,
It was really to network, and it was a great experience for that. I met some great people in Miami, and I got to meet up with them face to face, and what they're doing in mining and in other aspects. But seeing Jack Miles there and explaining,
oh yeah, that was
the
great.
the uh, the partnership with NCR, the largest point of sale hardware, and how he then set up Lightning. So I think it's about 140 merchants, I think it is,
Yeah, right.
in America. So then you're like, okay, there's a serious adoption there, McDonald's, Walmart, and so forth.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, so how do we get there down under?
Well, that's right. It's like the infrastructure is done, right? So if you look at like,
Yeah, exactly.
your Macca's or
Yeah,
Subway or Starbucks, like they've built it because they'll have to be the same, right? So like
yeah,
the
yeah.
the hardware is ready to go. It's just when are they going to do it here? So it probably comes down to government regulation, I suppose, and yeah, the capital gains on things before they can sort of start
Mhm.
rolling it out, which is super irritating. But what's your with going back to Lightning? Like, what's your go-to Lightning wallet?
Wallet of Satoshi. Yeah, got to
Yeah.
support the Australian, the Aussies. But it is the first one I heard of too some time ago, and I was like, oh, it's Australian, even better.
So cool. So cool to see
Yeah,
that like on videos in Africa and stuff. You're like, oh, that's
yeah, yeah. No,
amazing.
all over the place. It's
It's
impressive.
pretty incredible. They've
That's the
done a good
thing.
job.
Australia is also a very innovative country. Breakthroughs in so many things, whether it's green or medicine. Um, so we've got the minds. We just need the government backing.
That's right. And we've got the resources as well, in particular for mining. So it's like we have so much energy here
That's
that's like
just
wasted. Like, it's amazing. Well, and that's like the really cool thing that you've seen in El Salvador, like the fact they're using geothermal to do basically universal basic income over proof of work. Like he Bukele doesn't get the props he deserves for that. He gets kind of berated by the IMF in the in the news. It's like he's completely green, fixed his country with power from a volcano. Like how can you not like it ticks all the boxes, right? Like
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
it's
guess that's the
incredible.
point. I forgot earlier on when we were talking about adoption and the delay, and talking about changing the delivery of the message we give to people who don't understand it, and that is the message I've been changing. Apart from the value of gold, money, and the history of that, I've
Yeah.
really been focusing on that misconception with these headlines that Bitcoin uses more energy than
Mm,
half the world or wherever else. Um, but then how valuable are all of the renewable energy breakthroughs for the rest of the world moving forward for the next 10, 20, 50 years?
that's
A
right.
liquid asset which is helping people again in the developing world, hydropower, even oil rigs. You drill a hole and you have that energy lost, like opening a can of Coke, and it's lost, capturing that, and then using it to mine Bitcoin. But particularly with the power lines in the developing world, they're just on 24/7 humming. Also, when there's no power needed, which can be captured and used with
That's right.
Bitcoin, and then sold to develop those areas in Africa, and then to support the power system when they actually need the power. So switch off the nodes and switch off the mining, and so that's a lot of examples that I've been giving to people lately.
Yeah. I 100% agree. And I think like in terms of like hash rate as well, how important that is. Like, are you mining at all?
No, I didn't get into mining. There's a great guy in Brisbane called Pierce. He's got mine racks. In
Oh yeah, I think I've heard of him. Yeah.
yeah. So he was basically he's doing mining as a service effectively. Put your rigs in there, or he'll help you find them, and yeah,
Yeah, that's
can go
awesome.
straight to your non-custodial wallet, and you don't need to worry about it in your home with the high costs. I've got my whole roof full of solar. I mean,
Yeah, same.
if I could put solar down the walls along the garden, then it'd be fantastic. So I'm waiting for more of that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've got solar and I got a Tesla battery. I'm mining here, but I just do it sort of oscillate with the sun. So basically turn it off at night and then yeah, do it
Yeah,
during the
that's the direction I'm going to be going with Tesla.
It's something that I think like um it's really important that I think even a lot of Bitcoiners don't understand how important the hash rate is, right? Like, so I don't even really look at price at all. I look at hash rate because it's the power of the network. And when you see the discrepancy between like we're at an all-time high now still for hash rate and the price is kind of down here, they're meant to be up around the same place, right? So that's like showing like people who don't know anything about BTC, you show them that chart and be like, well, this is where the price is, this is where it should be. that's that's the ceiling of where it's going, right? And it's only
Yeah,
going up.
exactly.
But
Looking at
it's
the, I look at the price just for buying opportunities. So it was good
yeah,
to wake up this morning and see it's hitting the 20s again due to more FUD
yeah, yeah.
with Silvergate and whatever they say. Oh, options expiring, and it's like a small amount of Bitcoin, but it creates enough fear for it to sell. So then you quickly dollar cost averaging again,
This,
or
yeah.
the Mount Gox thing, which has been supposedly been, getting their coins back for the last, I don't know, multiple years. It was supposed to be November 2 years ago, and now it's next week, or now it's, so all these random things affect the price, but the hash rate and the
Exactly.
thing just keeps ticking along,
Yeah. It's
doing
it's
what
the
it.
real value. So, and you probably appreciate it more than most people as well, having a background in like IT, is the fact that we've as a community across the world built a network that's never been hacked and has never gone down. Like, show me that somewhere else. It's never happened, right?
Yeah,
It's
no, exactly. And
incredible, and it
these
just keeps getting
stories of,
stronger.
yeah, Bitcoin hacked 5 years ago. No, an exchange was hacked, or
Yeah,
somebody did something right. It wasn't Bitcoin that was hacked.
yeah.
It's the same as it's for criminals. It's the same storylines which aren't actually the truth. Criminals still use cash more than anything else, and
That's right.
Bitcoin has not been hacked.
That's
Um,
right. I ran a class for cybersecurity students earlier in the year for asymmetric encryption, and we used like BTC as an example. It was really cool. So we went through the whole thing, and basically the premise was, keep your private key private, and what are the different ways you can do that. They sort of came up with different ways to do that creatively, and then at the end, sort of did questions, so knowledge, the knowledge portion of it, and I was like, went into the fact that BTC has never been hacked as a network. And they all kind of balked at that. They were like, because this is like the height of FTX nonsense in the news, sort of thing. And I think it was like a light bulb moment because I was like, no, like what FTX was doing was giving out IOUs. Those
yes,
people didn't have their private keys. It's exactly what we just did today. And I think they're like, oh, right. So, and that's cybersecurity students, right? So, like, what's the average person thinking out there? God knows what.
well, cybersecurity greatly concerns me, but particularly in Australia.
Yeah.
when I first came to Australia in 2008, it was the critical skill required in the country, and it clearly still is, because since then we've had some major security breaches with
Big time.
private hospitals. I worked in one during that period with ransomware, and then we've had Medibank now, and everyone's getting all these texts and so forth. So you've got all these prime examples why we should be
Yeah,
using a model. Okay, Bitcoin, it's Bitcoin to secure yourself, and your assets.
exactly right. Like, and even like I love Noster. I don't know if you're on Noster
Yes,
yet,
yes, yeah. Just
but
recently, yeah.
so simple. Like, and that's using asymmetric encryption, so private key, public key, and like the concept I think could be applied to so many things and fix so much stuff. So, like you were saying, all these hacks for identity. Why do we need that anymore? We have a system that we can utilize for that. That could plug into the legacy system, like so you could have your 100 points of ID that you authenticate with your Noster key, for example, like your pub key attached to your private key, sort of thing. But I was thinking, even with that, I could. Because for years I've been thinking about how we can utilize like these networks, or BTC specifically, for voting as a voting mechanism, which we actually
Definitely.
did at my school, with not using BTC, was like with another crypto that we won't mention, but basically like using their network to vote, so the kids got to vote on how we allocated Bitcoin for our school, like using another blockchain
Yeah,
too.
yeah, yeah. I remember
But
seeing
like,
that.
I was thinking, why can't we do that at like a national level, for voting on either issues, or voting on um, or voting on representatives, for if we still want to go that route. But like, I think Noster is probably the answer to that now, right? Like, it's such a cool piece of technology. Shout out to Jack. Such a such so innovative. Like the fact that he's built that, and basically in one, with an open protocol, made Twitter essentially obsolete. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what occurs now with closing that gap in the journey, because we're going to have a similar thing with Bitcoin. There's a huge amount of people using Twitter. Imagine it's like the legacy fiat system. How do
Yeah.
we? How are they going to move across to Nostra? How do we move them across without breaking all of that
Yeah.
security?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Well, I kind of see like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Not that I'm on the other two. Um,
my God, yeah,
yeah, no, gross. Um, but I kind of see them like having to adhere to the open protocol rather than the other way around, right? So I think like they'll probably have to introduce
yeah,
Noster, rather than people sort of migrating away. So I'd reckon the people utilizing those systems might not even know, like for the
yeah.
short
Okay,
term. But yeah, it's gonna be awesome. So I kind of like equate it to like VoIP, how that sort of revolutionized well what we're doing now, right? Like, but
yeah,
like years ago, if you wanted to go and call the UK, it would cost you like thousands of dollars to speak to your family for 5 minutes, sort of thing, and now it's completely free. And I always I equate that to BTC as well. Like, it's an open protocol basically fixed that. It's not that the telcos all of a sudden became really nice people. Like, they basically went, oh shit, we have to try and play catch up
yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I was in Africa again when I was telling people about Skype. And how massive that was. Completely
Yeah,
free, and obviously you can buy Skype credits to make cheaper calls, because astronomical in the middle of nowhere in the developing world, and you speak for 2 minutes and you've spent like $30 or something.
it's
And also
wild.
it takes you ages to get one of these lines, connect to one of these lines when you use these cards. But the worry about all these other things with uploading your driver's license and doing all of this, then it gets hacked. So they've the hackers have got all of that, so almost need to remove it as
Honeypot.
well, to be honest. So
Yep.
which would take a lot of resistance. But you've got Australian government departments are like, okay, great, now we've got voice. You say hello, my name is XYZ, and then you take that, you call them up, you just speak, and then you get access. But the
Yeah.
problem with all that artificial intelligence is, well, you can copy the voice, you can take some images and make documents and video and so forth. So it just brings you back to the high security of Bitcoin and
Of ID. Yeah. Yeah.
ID. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I'll almost say, like, going back to the voting thing, I reckon we should get to a place where if you don't have the skills to protect a private key, you shouldn't be allowed to vote. I think that
Okay.
would fix a lot of things, right? Like,
Yes.
it really would. So we would have like a litmus test for like who's allowed to vote, and then what. And I dare say 90% of Canberra wouldn't be able to do that, right? So
So yeah, that's a good outcome, I suppose. Yeah. Well, another example would be for referendums. I mean, we talk about them for a very long time in Australia, uh, and you go to let's talk about Switzerland again because we spent some time. They have a referendum almost every week. You know, it's
yeah,
highly sort of fair there. So that they could, and wouldn't surprise me if they'll be
introduce
the
something like that.
forefront of
Yeah,
that with the Crypto Valley and Zog, which has got lots of startups there and a lot of investment in regards to innovation. And when you've got strong decisions that impact the population and getting an answer accurately and quickly without the other huge costs that are involved. I mean, the cost involved to set up a referendum in Australia is huge when
mm,
you look at it. Like, and then it takes a huge amount of time after the fact as well.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, so obviously you're well traveled, going around the world, sort of learning about these different countries and how they work, and you sounds like you're pretty well read as well. But what's your go-to for education? So educating yourself, educating your kids as well. You're obviously teaching them financial literacy. Like, where do you sort of go?
yeah, always go to people that know a lot more than you know,
Yeah,
which I learned a long time ago. So the the networking is the key, really. Yes,
yeah,
and then you learn about another book, which you read, these various books, check your financial privilege, Bitcoin is better. You have all this lots of books, but go into meetups and people that are really those devs deep, the Bitcoin nerds, and really you're dedicating a huge amount of time. Like you said there, you've got like 3 or 4 nodes, you're doing all these things. Um, I was out of the picture for those years in Brazil, so really trying to delve right back to
yeah,
that level.
yeah,
I got a bit bled with trying to get my Ethereum back and all those other altcoins. So now it's a network and it's talking to smart people,
very cool,
like
very cool.
like Gordon as well at the School of
Shout out to Gordon.
Bitcoin and
Yeah,
all the stacks and so forth. How these things go, but people are trying to build solutions on
yeah, for
Bitcoin,
sure,
and
absolutely.
that's quite exciting to show people and talk to people about, particularly the people that are non-technical that might have seen some of the use case for smart contracts. And you make those examples about accountancy, lawyers, real estate assets, and all these things. It would just be fantastic to see that as another layer, whichever
Yeah,
layer, or how that's created, whether it's stacks or something else.
absolutely. Yeah, layer two solutions for sure. Um, yeah. So finally, are you coming to Bitcoin Alive?
Absolutely, yeah. I was
Yay!
definitely coming. Yeah, I was just looking at where to stay because I've not been to Kensington. So yeah, that should be a lot of fun. Yeah,
Yeah,
looking
cool.
forward
I'll find my hotel and tell you where I'm staying as well. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be awesome because I haven't really been to an all Bitcoin conference before, so it's going to be
no,
very very different, I think. And I've presented at a lot of education conferences, like probably 1,000 or so over the years.
okay,
Um, but you're always kind of like biting your tongue and you're not sort of sure like where the level's at. But I think we're all going to be on the same level, so there's going to be no holding back. So yeah, I'll be talking about the Score Bitcoin there and the projects that we're building off that, which is going to be pretty exciting. So yeah, keen to see you there. But thanks so much, Ben. This has been really cool,
Cheers.
really enlightening. It's cool to hear your learning journey. So we'll have to stay in touch. And if you're free this Arvo, we've got the Score Bitcoin faculty meeting. If you want to jump back in, we can have a chat about stuff then.
Cool. Let's talk. Clock.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Ben.
All
Talk
right.
soon.
Cheers.
Cheers,
Bye.
buddy.